A warm good evening to all present here. I am Anjali Anprata, the Outreach Lead of Developer Student Club's Jyothi Engineering College. I welcome all of you to the maiden workshop organized by the Developer Student Club's Jyothi Engineering College. So as you all know, today's workshop is on mobile application development. We sincerely hope you have a great learning experience today. Now, let me introduce our DSC lead, Srirag. He is the perfect choice for a lead and is an all-rounder. Those who know him will describe him as a humble, modest and generous human. He was the facilitator for Google AI Explorer ML Academy, winner of Reboot Kerala Hackathon for Revenue and Disaster Management, and has hosted events all across the state as a resource person. I can go all day long telling you his achievements, but let's hear him talk. The man himself, Srirag, I welcome you for a brief introduction of DSC-JEC and the event.
Thank you, Anjali, and good evening to all. As most of you know, DSC is a tech community composed of university students and graduates who like to learn about technology, share ideas, and come up with viable projects. Its aim is to help students to build their technical and professional skills. These clubs are intended as space for students to try out new ideas and collaborate to solve universe problems. It's the first time DSC coming to Jyothi Engineering College. We have a wonderful team here with super supportive management, best faculties, great mentors, and vibrant, energetic core team like Anjali, our outreach lead, Manish, our co-lead, Rashi, our technical lead, Ajib, our marketing lead, Ashwini, our management lead, Vinci, our innovations lead, Amal, our force lead, Riju, our robotics lead, Jyotis, our robotics co-lead, Joel, our cybersecurity lead, and I'm really lucky to be part of it. I want to thank them all for making this event happen, especially Mr. Shaiju Pool, Assistant Professor and Faculty Advisor of DSC-JEC, who is with us all the time. And I'm really excited to see you all here. This workshop is geared towards beginners in mobile application development and is hosted by three versatile developers, Manish Manoj, Rashi M, and Mohammad Ranish. Manish will guide you through Dart, Ranish will walk you through basics of Flutter, Rashi will give you session how to build an application from scratch, followed by a Q&A session. We are planning to conduct a more advanced session on Android application development, ethical hacking, and machine learning in coming months. Stay tuned for that. You can stay in touch with us in Instagram, official chapter page, and Twitter. Without wasting more time, let me hand over my virtual mic in this virtual stage to Manish.
Thank you, Sridhar. That was a great introduction from your side. Now, let us get into the core part of our workshop. So, first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Manish Manoj, co-lead at Developer Students Club, Jyothi Engineering College. So, in my session, I will introduce you to Dart. This session is intended to be a beginner-friendly session. So if there is anyone who has some experience in Flutter as well as Dart, I think it would be boring for you to attend it. Anyway, you could refresh your theory knowledge about Dart in this. So officially, let's start the session. So Dart is an object-oriented high-level programming language developed and maintained by Google. Before the introduction of Flutter, Dart was developed as an internal language that was used for web and user interface applications inside Google. And after Flutter was developed, Dart is considered as the core language behind Flutter. So let's start by discussing the agenda of today's session. We will be discussing the steps to get started with Flutter development, some installation and other Dart basic stuff. After that, we will discuss about Dart and the history of Dart and Flutter. So after the history, we will discuss the Dart pad, and through which we will cover the basics of Dart, which include some data types and the derived data types like a list, map, and set. We will also talk about some functions, control flow, and classes in Dart. And before winding up, we will also discuss about the official documentation, the Dart.dev. Okay, so let's get started with Flutter. So in this section, we will be discussing the basic development environment setup as well as some basic Dart basics. So I have divided the getting started portion into two parts, out of which I hope that you have already completed the first part, which is setting up the Android Studio IDE, which takes about 2 gigs of data, as well as installing the Flutter SDK, and the third part is installing Dart, but in the current versions of Flutter, Dart is also included, so you don't need to worry about installing Dart separately. I hope that you have seen the content that we have created for the installation, and I hope you have followed, and without any problems you may have installed the Android Studio as well as Flutter. So let's keep it that way. And the things that we need to do is to learn Dart basics and start developing Flutter apps, which will be covered in the upcoming sessions later today. So speaking about Dart, first of all, let me introduce you to Dart, a programming language which is a client optimized and object oriented, used specifically for application development in multiple platforms like mobile, desktop, server, and web applications. For starters, we could say that the Dart is somewhat similar to other languages like C++ and JavaScript, where the syntax of Dart somewhat follows the other syntaxes. And by taking a look at the Dart development as well as the Flutter SDK, we could say that the Dart is heavily optimized for user interface development. So that's all about Dart. In the right side, you could see a timeline where Dart was released in 2011, way before Flutter was released in 2017. So typically, Dart is a new gen programming languages with the other programming languages like Python, JavaScript, and C++ dating way beyond the 20th century. So we could say that Dart contains all of the new features or the better features of the other programming languages, and Dart is, as we have told, heavily optimized for UI development, and that was the reason why Dart was considered in Flutter development. Because we use a single language like Dart, we don't need to natively implement the code base into two separate code bases like a Swift code base for iOS and Kotlin code base for Android. Those details will be covered in a more proper manner by the upcoming facilitators. So let's move on. So the first thing that a Dart developer for a Dart developer that comes into his mind will be Dartpad. Dartpad is an online Dart compiler that could be used to test and implement Dart logic and code before we start integrating it into a Flutter project. In a way, Dartpad makes it easier for a Flutter developer as well as a Flutter learner who could, without any setup, use a simple web browser to get started with Dart, as well as in the newer version, there is also a provision for Flutter. So, for some of you guys who don't have the required devices like proper GPU and CPU for Android Studio, there is a slight possibility for you to try out Dart and Flutter code in Dartpad. So this is a basic picture of the Dartpad. Here we have, in the left side we have a code editor, in the right side we have a console which displays the output. If we have any errors, it will be displayed in the bottom right corner. So more details about Dartpad will be discussed while we are going to have a hands-on session. So this is the website where Dartpad is hosted. So let's check it out. So let me reset this code. This was the code that was left behind from my previous Dartpad. So let's start it again, or let me reload it. So this is a typical Dartpad which contains the code editor and the console, as well as the error segment, which is not showing an error because there isn't any. So let's move on with the PPT and let's see what we have to learn from this. Okay, so I hope that my audience has basic object-oriented knowledge. As requested by some of the participants, I will be taking some basic OOP concepts, but I don't think having a proper OOP class, without having a proper OOP knowledge, that won't be too much easy to grasp. So I am hoping that you have somewhat some knowledge in the object-oriented paradigms. So the things that we are discussing will be data types, the simple data types like integer, string, boolean, etc. The other data types that are derived from the simple data types like list, set, and map will also be covered. We'll also take a look into the functions, control flow, and classes. Although these three things are very much common with any other programming language, so we won't be taking a closer look into this. We will be observing the data types in a more precise manner. So let's start with the basic data types. So Dart offers a wide variety of data types, just like any other programming language. The standard set of data types, the integer, the string, as well as the boolean. Dart also offers another set of data types like var as well as dynamic. These two have special use cases which will be discussed later. So let's go to the Dartpad and have an hands-on. So let's declare an integer variable using the int keyword. Let's say an age keyword variable, and let's store 20 as a value. Next we will use the string keyword with the capital S. That is really important because most of us make mistakes. The string keyword has a capital S, just like Java. String, let's say name equal to Manish. Okay, that's the basic data type. One more, that's boolean. So boolean uses shows true or false. So let's check if it's okay. Let's store a boolean data is Saturday. So because it's Saturday, let's store it as true. Now let's try printing using the print keyword, just like any other programming language. Let's try printing the age. Let's try printing the name. and let's try printing is Saturday. There are some errors. No, everything has disappeared. So this will print the values 20, Manish, and true, just like any other programming language that behaves like one. So there's nothing much different about the basic data types. Now we have the var as well as the dynamic data type. So talking about, let's start with the dynamic first. So that is what is called a statically typed programming language. So what that means is that if we declare a variable in age, that is if we declare a variable called age which is of integer data type, and after some time we need to store a string, we can't store a string value in the same variable without reinitializing. So let's say if we need to store a string, so that will raise an error, that is a value of type string cannot be assigned to a variable of type int. So that is what is called a statically typed programming language. So that is by default a statically typed programming language. So if we, by any chance, if we require to have a dynamically typed program variable, we need to use the dynamic keyword. So if we use the dynamic keyword, the error has simply vanished. So that's the use of dynamic variable, dynamic keyword. Next, let's look at the var keyword. The var keyword is it automatically assigns the type of the variable in the runtime. So if we have a var variable that has name anything, and if we initially we store integer 20 inside it, and if we print anything over there, we will get an integer. So at any other point, if we need to store some other value, let me, using the same variable, we could store a string. So we have seen the same name and the same keyword being used to store two different data types. So that's a use of var keyword. Although that offers many specific data types like double and num for integers, and similar data types for string. The mostly used data type is var because of its usability and easy to use nature. So let's look into the derived data types. These derived data types are those data types which include a set of elements. So let's start with list. A list is an ordered group of elements. So it is common to the Python list. The lists are defined using data type list. So the data type is given inside the angle brackets. So if we specify an int inside the angle bracket, then the list, let's say the name of the list is ages, and the list uses the square brackets as usual in all other programming languages. So if we store any values inside that list, we could simply obtain the list by printing it ages. Let me put a semicolon. So that's a list for you. Okay, so we got the output. The next derived data type is set. So the difference between set and integer list is that set doesn't include set only includes unique values. So to define a set, we use the curly braces. So if we say we have the following set, and if you try to print the set, it will print in a curly brace. Let's check it. So in the current scenario, there is no difference between a list and a set, but let's see it in a scenario like this. If we have two threes, then let's see what will happen. So if I try to add a 3 over here, then there raises an error. Two elements in a set literal shouldn't be equal. So that's the difference between a set and a list. The other derived data type that we are going to discuss is map. So a map uh, is an collection of key value pairs as elements. So it needs two data types to be defined, one for the key and the other for the value. So let's say the keys are of int type and the values are of string type. So let's say we have a directory. So it can be defined using a curly braces, and the key value pairs are ordered by placing a colon in between them. So let's say the phone number 123 and the name is ABCD. This is a key value pair. Now let's define another key value pair. Let's say 234 as the phone number, and let's XYZ as the name. So this is a typical map which contain key value pairs. Here the data type of the map key as well as the map value is explicitly defined over here, that is integer and string. So the map maps between, so this data structure maps between this key to this value. So that's the difference between list, set and map. So as we have already discussed earlier, we have the var keyword that automatically detects the data type of the variable that we are going to store. So we could also use the same var data type over here. So if we say we use a var keyword to create a let's say key, so if we use a square bracket to store some elements, and let's try printing out the type of that variable. So to print the type of that variable, we need to use that variable dot runtime type. That's the syntax. I hope that's worked. Let me see. Okay, so it's an array of integers. So var keyword can also be used to automatically detect or so we don't need to specifically define the type of that data or the data type that is going to be stored inside that variable. The var keyword automatically identifies that. So this is a feature that I have seen in JavaScript, but it is not there in any other language like C or C++. So this is an added functionality of Dart. Now let's get into the slide. So we have covered the derived data types. Now let's get into the functions. So like any other programming language, Dart also has a set of functions, and the functions we could also define some functions to perform specific tasks or tasks. And just like C, we have the main function as the entry point for the Flutter for the Dart compiler. So anything or everything that is defined inside this main function will get executed. It is considered as a starting point for the Flutter for the Dart compiler. So the functions, as we discussed, will have their own parameters and will also return values. So the return type of the function is specifically defined during the declaration. There are also two types of functions that we need to stress upon. These are called the arrow functions and the anonymous functions. The arrow functions, let me try to Okay, so if we can define a function called which returns a string, let's call that function uh, name return. So typically the syntax that we will use is we will use a return statement and we will return a string. So without that procedure, we could simply return a string using the arrow function. This is the arrow operator, and we could simply return a string over here. So string. So if we try to print that function name return, we will get the returned value printed. Okay, so it will return this value using this single line function. This is called the arrow function. It is also a part of JavaScript. Now the second type of function is somewhat a broader concept, and it is called anonymous function. This type of function is widely used in Flutter as a part of buttons and keywords that we will discuss in the upcoming section. So these functions, the anonymous functions, as the name points out, will not have any name. So typically these functions are used for specific tasks that need to be performed only once. So they are not defined with a name. So let's move on. These are the control flow statements that is used that is available in Dart. So the common control flow statements like if and else, for loops, while and do while loops, break and continue, switch and case, assert. These are all common statements that we could find in any other programming language. So I don't think we need to concentrate more on these statements. It is very common to a any programming language. So let's move on. So classes and objects. This is the real deal, as pointed out, because in an object-oriented programming language like Dart, everything is considered as a class. So the functions or the data types that we have already used in the previous part, all these were defined as a class, and that is a core concept that we will also use in the upcoming Flutter sections. So be wary of this. I hope that most of you have some idea regarding the object-oriented concept. So let's give a short introduction to everyone who I think doesn't have an introduction to object-oriented programming language. So we could see in object-oriented programming language, everything is revolving around the idea of classes and objects. So classes can be said as the blueprint, or classes are the set of rules which are followed to make an object. So the classes, they contain attributes and methods and certain properties of them. So while creating an object or creating an instance of a class, we use that particular rules to create the object. That is the basic of object-oriented programming concept. Next part, we have constructors which are used to create populate the objects with value, and the dot operator is similar to what we have seen in other programming languages. The dot operator is used to access the objects, methods as or attributes. The other one is extends keyword, which is used for inheritance. That is to have a set of features of the parent class to a child class. So let's skim through a piece of code which I have made to familiarize you with object-oriented programming concept. So here we have the main function, and also we have a class definition. The class name is member, and it has two attributes, that is string name attribute and an age attribute. And it also have a member function which is similar to exactly similar to the class name. This is called the constructor, which we have discussed earlier. So the constructor will populate objects based on the value that it receives as a parameter. And the class member also has another method called print name, which prints the name. So here we can say that we are creating a class called an object called member1 using the var keyword and the class definition. We are passing the name and the age which are required for the constructor, and after that we are invocating the print name function defined inside the class member for the object member1. So because we have provided the name DSC, it will output the name DSC over here. That is the basic concept behind object oriented. Now let's see the use of extends keyword. So here we have the main function. We have a class called shape, which also has a method called calculate area. So while invocating this, it will print a string calling calculate area defined in the shape class. So we have another class called circle, which extends from the shape class. So we can say that the shape class is the parent class and the circle class is the child class. So by using the extends keyword, we are telling the compiler that the circle class will also have every other feature that the shape class will have. So in the main function, we are creating an object of this circle class, and we are trying to invocate the call calculate area function or the method defined in the circle class. So we can say that because the calculate area function is defined over here, it will get executed because this class extends shape class. So the output will be calling calculated area defined in the shape class, just like what we have expected. So finally, I would like to tell you about the documentation, which which con contains every other detail about Dart language. It is well organized documentation. It would be better if you could skim through this documentation a little bit if it is available for you. It is well organized into language samples, language tour, library tour, data SDK. It contains every other detail that you need before getting started with Flutter development. So I hope that you guys will take a look into this documentation. So let's touch into the library tour. So this contains some information about the libraries that are involved in Dart. So it contains a lot of details. Discussing every other detail in this session is not possible, so I leave it as a assignment for you guys. Before getting started with Flutter development, it is a great practice to go through the Dart as well as the Flutter library, which will be discussed in the upcoming sections. So I hope I have covered most of the Dart fundamentals that is required for you to get started to the Flutter development as well as to attend the upcoming sections. So the upcoming section will be based on Flutter introduction. It will be handled by Renish. Thank you all. Over to you, Renish.
Thank you, Manish, for your great talk on Dart. He explained most of the Dart for the Flutter app development in a short time. Now we can move to the next part. So now we can start. My name is Muhammad Ranish. I am final year computer science student at Jyothi Engineering College. Today I am going to talk about what, why, how the Flutter. I talk about what is Flutter, then I discuss why we should learn Flutter, and at last I give some basic idea how you can develop with Flutter. So before we start, I want to mention that this is a completely beginner-friendly talk. If you are an experienced Flutter developer, you may have felt boring because of the theory part. Maybe you can refresh your theory about Flutter. So we can start now. First of all of you just think that you are an Android app developer. You built a revolutionary app like YouTube or Tinder or something else. Because you are an Android app developer, you created an Android app, you published it in the Play Store, and it went viral. So every day you receive messages from the iOS users or the Apple fanboys about the publishing of the app for the iOS platform. You did not have enough knowledge about the iOS platform, or you did not have enough time to do it. Finally, at some point you got some free time for it. Then you may want to go for some course that talk about the iOS platform. You want to study the Swift language. You may want to buy many books. You are spending a lot of money and time on this. Finally, you published for the both platforms, that is Android and iOS. Here comes the next challenge. So whenever you want to make an update, you want to develop it for both platforms. You want to work with Java or Kotlin for Android and Swift for iOS at the same time. You want to push the code in the repositories for both the platforms. You want to fix bugs in both platforms. So that makes a lot of troubles for you. So what is the solution? The solution is Flutter. So now, what is Flutter? According to Google, who developed the Flutter, Flutter is a UI toolkit for building beautiful, natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop from a single code base. That means from a single language in a single code base, you can create app for Android, iOS. You can also develop for web and desktop. The desktop and web are not stable now, but within near future they will be stable. So the next question, why you should learn Flutter? The reason for learning Flutter are: first, cross-platform. The main feature of Flutter is the cross-platform app development. You only require to write code once and you can run it on every possible platform that Flutter supports. Currently, Android and iOS app development are stable. Also, the web development is in beta stage. The desktop support is in alpha stage, but within near future, all of them will be stable. The next one is fast development. Hot reload and hot restart. These are the two features that reduce development time. You can change your code and see the result in real time. It's called a hot reload. It only takes a short amount of time after you save to update the application itself. Hot restart, on the other hand, saves time by just implementing the functionality based on the closest build class in less than 10 seconds without restarting the whole app. If you restart the whole app, it may take more than 30 seconds, so you are saving a lot of time here. So this is an example of hot reload. Here you can see that changing the code and pressing the hot reload icon simultaneously show the result. We can modify the functionality of the app while running the app. This makes the debugging process easy and less time consuming. Instead of pressing the button, you can just save it by Ctrl and S. The effect will be the same. I will show an example of hot reload later in this talk. The next feature of Flutter is the ability to build responsive apps. Consider the case of Apple. Their screen sizes are varying every year. The screen sizes are now bigger compared to the old models. On the Android side, we cannot even calculate the number of models there. Any company can produce its own Android device, so the complication is very high. With the help of widgets like row, column, tag, padding, margin, etc., we can make beautiful responsive apps very easily. I will explain what is a widget later in this talk. It uses a similar concept that web uses for creating a responsive apps. So Flutter can support any screen size. The next feature is simple to learn and use. In Flutter, you can create the best UIs with very less number of code. You can easily use widgets provided by Flutter and personalize it to create beautiful UI. Flutter supports the material design out of the box, so your designs or UIs will be good looking. App development with Flutter is very easy when comparing to the native app development. You only need to know one language, that is Dart. I'm skipping Dart since Manish already did a great talk about Dart. The next feature is low development cost. It is cheaper to develop a mobile application with Flutter because you did not need to create and maintain two mobile applications. You did not require developers respective to each platform. You do not need developers in Java and Swift. So the cost of development is low compared to the native app development. If you go for native app development, you require both Android and iOS app developers. If you wish to publish on the desktop or the web, the cost will be very high. The next main feature is the documentation. You can learn a lot from Flutter's documentation, and everything is very detailed with easy examples. You did not have any troubles in using the documentation because you can access everything easily on the website. For getting information about any widgets, we can just Google it, and this will lead us to the Flutter's documentation. It also contains details about every possible part of the Flutter. Everything is explained with proper examples that we can understand very easily. So now we are moving to the next part. This is how we can build a Flutter app. So this is the main point to remember if you want to be a Flutter developer. In Flutter, everything is a widget. So you may ask, what is a widget? Widgets are the building blocks of Flutter app's user interface. We design the app by adding widgets on the top of another, just like building a wall with brick or playing with Lego blocks. I told that in Flutter, everything is a widget. So we can design an app with some widgets. We are designing the I Am Rich app. I think most of you know about the I Am Rich app. For those who don't know, it's an iOS application which is priced at $999.99, which is the maximum price in the App Store, which only shows a red gem and an icon that when pressed displays some text. So it was developed in 2008 and Apple was removed it the day after its release. So he made some money with that. Now we are redesigning that app that shows a dollar symbol at the top and then I am billionaire text at the bottom of it. So now we can design. For designing the app, the first thing we need is a scaffold widget. The scaffold is like a root widget that we can add widgets like app bar, floating action button, button navigation bar, etc. on top of it. Next we added an app bar which most of the applications have. The app bar widgets help us to create an app bar at the top of the screen. Now we added the title of the app to the app bar. This is done using a text widget as the child of the app bar. Now we added a container which is similar to div in HTML, which acts as a placeholder for other widgets in it. It helps with the positioning and the sizing of the other widgets. The next one we added is a column widget. Unlike the container, it can have children, so it can hold multiple children. Every widget in column is arranged as a column, that is one after another in that order. Then we added an icon widget which show the dollar icon as a child of the column widget. So it will be at the top of the column as is earlier. The final one we add is the text widget which show I am billionaire text at the bottom of the dollar icon in the column. So I hope that the concept of the widget is clear now. Now when we observe, we can see that there are three types of widgets here. Widgets with a child, widget with children, and widget without a child. So the first one is the widget with a child. The app bar and the container widget can only have a single child. They cannot contain multiple widgets. The next one was widget with multiple children. They are mostly used for layout purposes. Beside the column widget, we have row widget which hold the widget row-wise. The stack widget which stack widget top of another are the widgets with multiple children. The last category is the one which does not have a child. They do not use for layout purpose. They have special purpose, like for example the text widget, the icon widget, which have a special purpose for them. So this is the code for the app we designed. The text which is in yellow, the things like material app, scaffold, app bar, text, container, column, icon, text that show in the code are the widgets. There is a material app widget which helps us to follow the material design guidelines in Flutter. We didn't include it in the widget tree. So the idea of the material app widget is, if you want to make a mobile application in Flutter, you have to first insert the material app widget at the root of the widget tree to get started. Consequently, your app now uses the material design. So all other widgets are we explained earlier. So now you can see how small the code is required to create an app like this. So that's why we say the Flutter is so simple. So when we run app in a physical device, we get an app like this. So we don't want an application like this, because this is not good looking. So to make it good looking, so we want to make an application like this one on the right side with the green dollar symbol. So you can see how beautiful it is compared to the other one. So in order to achieve this result, we can use different properties of the widget. By using the different properties of the widget, we can customize the app, just like we beautify the HTML with CSS properties. We all know the HTML, the website looks terrible, but with CSS we can do the magic. Similarly, with the properties of the widgets, we can customize the app like what we needed. So this diagram explains the usage of properties and widgets that used in this to achieve the beautiful design. We have added some more widgets like sender and text style, sized box here to make it little bit beautiful. So here we changed the background color by customizing the background color properties of the scaffold widget. We also changed the background color of the app bar using the background color property. We also added a sender widget for centering the column. So sender widget is like make it child in center aligned. We use the main axis alignment property to align the widget in the main axis of the column. that is the y-axis. We modified the color and size of the icon using the color and size properties, and we added a sized box between them with a height property. So the icon and the text are moved a little bit. There will be a space with the height specified in the sized box. The last one is we added is the text widget, which is modified using text style widget and its properties like font size, font weight. So we can make a ugly app like the one we saw earlier to make a beautiful app like this. So that's easy. So this section intended to know what is a widget. If you did not get the things related to a specific widget like a bar or container or a column, you don't worry. You can have them in the Flutter documentation, which is here in the Flutter dev website. Later, Rashi also explains about some of the widgets. So now we can visit the website now. So we are now on the official website of Flutter. Here top we have the docs. I'm clicking on that. Here you get everything related to Flutter. We can just go to the widget catalog here. Here the other things like API docs, videos, samples, etc. We are going to the widget catalog because we need to know about widgets. So here the widgets are categorized in. So we learned about some layout widgets, so we can find them here. So the first thing we see is a single child layout widget. We talked about the single child layout widgets like sender and container. When we scroll down, we can see that the multi-child layout widgets also. When we scroll, we can see the column widget, the row widget here, the stack widget here. So everything is documented here and their specification is given. So this is so easy. So now we can move to the container widget here. So here you can see that the description of the widget is given. The container class is a convenience widget that combines the common painting, positioning and sizing of the widget. Here a video is also given about the container widget. And besides that, we also given an example for the container widget. So you don't want to memorize every widget. So when we need them, just come here and check the docs. That's it. So now we can go back to our presentation. So that's a lot of theory. Now we can go to this link and copy the code. So this is the code for the IAM-Rich app that we designed now.
So if you wish, you can follow me at this point. First we can open the browser. I already did it. Then just type bit.ly/codepls, that is bit.ly//codepls, and just press enter. So you get our code. Just copy it, then open a new tab and type .pad.dev. Now create a new pad, press OK, then select Flutter and create. Then delete the code already exists and copy or paste our code. So I will quickly go through this one more time. First of all, we open the tab and typed bit.ly/codepls, then copied our code, then opened a new tab and typed dartpad.dev, then create a new pad, press OK, then select Flutter, just create it, then remove the code that already exists there, paste our new code. So we have our code in Dartpad now, so just run our code. So now we have our code in the Dartpad and we successfully run the app. Now we can play with this app. You can add widgets, change color, change size, etc. here. You can make the app look like you wish. So you can change the color here. You can see, for example, I will show you now. I just change this color into something like red and run this. So my color is changed to red, and I also changed the, you can see that this is the app bar. You have a background color property here, and you can change this color also. I changed it into something like blue. So our app bar is now changed to blue. So in this way you can change everything here. By changing the properties itself, you can customize your app. That is why I told in the early. And also you can change the text here. I'm going to change it to I am poor. So our app bar is now changed to I am poor. So I believe that we can design the I am poor app with this itself. So first of all, I will show you. You can change this. This is an icon which is taken from the icons which is in the material design UI. So we can go to a site called material.io. So I'm just searching for material icon here, icons, and you can see that this is a site called material.io. So here you get all of these widgets here itself. So I took the dollar symbol from here, which is the monetization on. Yeah, this one. This is the symbol we have used earlier. So we can change this into this with this. So its name is money off. So I'm returning to Dartpad and change my icon to icons dot money underscore off, and just running. So here our application is changed. So we can also change the text at the bottom. So I can write that I have no money. Just run it. So we changed the I am rich app into I am poor app with a line, with the simple line of code. Similarly, you can design everything you want with these widgets, properties, and icons, box, etc. So that's it. I believe that you got some idea of what Flutter's widgets and properties and layouts, etc., and how powerful the Flutter is,
and how easily you can create beautiful UIs with this Flutter. So in the upcoming session, Rashi will show you how you can build a simple app with Android Studio. So that's it. Thank you.
Good evening all. In this session, we are going to build our very first Flutter app. I hope you guys are already familiar with the object-oriented code and basic programming concept. So here, we are going to implement a simple app that generates random names for a startup company. So let's get started. We'll be using Android Studio for this and hope you have already installed it. So let's open Android Studio. Select the option Create New Flutter Project. Select the first option Create a Flutter application and click Next. Here we get to name our app. Let's name it Startup Names. This part tells you where the project is going to be saved, and okay, we are going to leave all of the rest as it is and click Next. Click Finish. Now the Android Studio will create a brand new Flutter project and it will set up with some starting codes. This is developed by the Flutter team and it's just a simple counter app. Let's try to run it. Before that, we need to launch our Android emulator. Okay, let's try to run this app. It may take a few seconds. Yes, here you can see this app. As I said before, it's just a simple counter app. That's all. Okay, now we are going to build our app entirely from this sketch. So I'm going to delete everything that is currently inside this file, except a few top lines. Okay, so let's start coding. First, we need to add the title property to our material app. Let's give startup names. Next, we are going to add home. It is an inner UI of our application. And inside home, we are going to use a scaffold widget. It is a top level widget next to the material app, and inside scaffold we are going to add an app bar. And inside app bar we are going to give it title. app bar is used. App bar is to show the header of our application. Let's change the color of our app bar to red. Let's try to run our application. As you can see, this title is already up. Now let's add body to our scaffold. And inside body we are going to use the center widget. It is a widget that center its child itself. And inside center we are going to create a child. And inside that, for now, let's print hello world. Okay, now let's try to reload. As you can see, our code works fine. I think the text is too small. Let's keep stay. Text style, font size 30, font panel by bold. Okay. Next we are going to use an external package called English Words. It is an open source package which contains a few thousands of most used English words plus some utility functions. So for importing an external package, first we need to add it to the dependency list on the pubspec.yaml file. We can find the file over here. This is it. Open the file and this is the dependency list. We can add we need to mention the version of the package 3.1.5. Now we need to click this pub-get to pull the external package into our project. Okay, fine. Now let's change a few lines of our code in the main file. First we need to import our package. Import English word / English words.dart. Now let's create a new variable over here, string variable. Let's name it word pair. Let's use the package to generate a random pair and save it on the word pair variable. Pascal case. Now let's change this hello world to the word pair variable. Let's try hot reload. Yes. Each time when we click the hot reload or save our project, we can see a different word pair chosen at random. This is because the word pair is generated inside the build method. Okay, now let's add a floating button. We will use this button to change the word pair, but for that we need to use a stateful widget. Currently we are using a stateless widget. You can see here. Stateless widgets are immutable and their values are always final. But stateful widgets maintain their state that can change during the lifetime of the widget. For implementing a stateful widget, we need at least two classes: a stateful widget class and a state class. So let's create a stateful widget. For that, just type stful and press enter. The IDE will automatically create those two classes, and let's name this widget as main page, and the IDE will automatically update the name over here. This is a feature of our IDE. Now we need to make some changes to our code. First of all, just cut this and we need to give the name of our new widget over here, that is my page. And here we can paste our scaffold widget as the return of this function, build function. Okay, we got some errors. Let's see. Yes. Next we need to cut the word pair generating layer from here and paste it over here inside the build function. Okay. Let's try to reload our. As the working is same as it is. Now we are going to add a button to change the word pair or view the next word pair without reloading our app. So for that, let's add a floating action button after here. Floating action button. Floating action button. On press event. Set state. So whenever the floating action button is clicked, it will generate a new random word pair. Let's give a background color to our floating button. Let's give it red. And we can let's add a text to our button. Okay, let's try save and reload our app. Yes, we can see the button over here, floating button. Yes, we have successfully built our very first Flutter app. Now let's build APK for our application, and for that we need to open the terminal and type Flutter build APK. Press enter. It may take a few seconds. Okay, the build is successful and you can find the APK file over here. That is build app output flutter APK app release.apk. You can use this APK file to install this our application on our physical devices. So this is it. I hope you have enjoyed this session and we will be having a Q&A session next. Thank you.
Okay, so we received a question. Does where data type allow you to reassign any type of data like dynamic? No, for the person who asked that question, the where data type is like it automatically assigns the type of the variable. So we don't need to specify the type. So let's move on to another question. So the question was, will you show USB ADB setup other than emulator? So we are trying to conduct future workshop, advanced workshop. So we will definitely include USB ADB setup in that workshop. I hope that I answered your question.
So another question we received is, which is best, Flutter versus React Native? So thanks for asking the question. In my opinion, it depends on you. You just try to answer yourself because it has more influence on your ability. For example, if you ask me VS Code versus Vim, I say VS Code because I am not worked with Vim. But in reality, Vim is best if you can work with shortcuts and it makes your task very easy. So try to find that answer yourself with your ability, your skill, etc. So I hope that I answered that question.
So good evening, guys. It was a wonderful workshop hosted by Developer Student Club, Jyothi Engineering College, Thrissur, and well managed by Mr. Manish, Rainish, and Rashi. And let me introduce myself. My name is Riju, Robotics Lead, Developer Students Club, JECC. And let me come into my duty. Thank you all. First of all, I would like to thank you, all the presenters in this workshop who are supporting and encouraging us to do this workshop. Without you guys, this workshop can never happen. So thank you so much, one and all, for your participation and this much of love. And next, I would like to thank our dedicated workshop handlers for are always working behind this workshop to deliver good content for all. So thank you so much. Next, I would like to thank our college, Jyothi, and its faculties and management who are always supporting us. So thank you once again for all your support. And also, there is a feedback form to fill, and it's mandatory to get your participation certificate. So I think the link is presenting now. And also, there is a post survey form which is used to researching about the quality of the program. This helps us to improve our programming in the future. So don't hesitate, please do fill the post survey. Form will be communicated through your registered email ID and you will be shortly. So thank you all.